Welcome to our Capture 2019 tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to take a closer look at materials. I've prepared a project file with a little bit of stage lighting and 2 cylinders on stage that we're going to use for a couple of materials. We're going to start off by using materials from the library. So let's go to the Library tab and the Materials category. Here are a few materials that we can use in our designs. And apart from applying them to the design, we are also able to edit them and modify them, so they start or serve as a good starting point for working with materials. Let's apply an iron metallic material to the leftmost cylinder and a transparent material to the rightmost. I will head to the metallic category, where I know there is a good textured iron. Let's apply that to the left cylinder. Then I'll head to the transparent category, pick up the plexiglass and apply that to the rightmost cylinder. As I mentioned, we are able to edit and modify the materials from the library. This is done in the Design tab under the Materials category. Any material used in a project always appears in this list, regardless of whether you have edited it or not. So let's start with the textured iron of the left cylinder. To begin with, the color is set to white, and the reason for that is that the texture itself is colored. So this is a good best practice, and the reason is the color combines with the texture. So the texture has a grain look to it with a little bit of iron color. And the next property to look at, skipping through the texture properties, is the smoothness. The smoothness basically defines how matte or glossy a surface is. If I move the slider for the smoothness property, you can clearly see how the object changes its appearance. 100% smoothness corresponds to a full mirror surface, and 0% smoothness corresponds to fully matte. So typically you will be working with values in between. Metallic, on the other hand, is a property that you usually set either to 0 or 100%. This controls the way colors shift as they are reflected on a metallic surface, and you can see if I set it to 0 that the surface looks very different from when it's set to 100%. Moving on, luminance is a property I will skip for the next episode when we talk more about textures. Then we come to transparency. So let's shift our focus to the rightmost cylinder where we applied the transparent plexiglass. Let's select the plexiglass material. Here you can see there is no texture involved, it's just a light gray color. The reason it's not pure white is that it does absorb some energy from the light, so it will still dim the light that travels through it a bit. Now, transparency is set to 90%, and obviously if I move this slider, you can see this affects how much I can see through the cylinder. Now, the reason that when I set it to 100%, it's not as if the cylinder wasn't there. That's because the cylinder is still casting shadows. Capture is not able to fully let light travel through an object, or in a variable fashion at least. So if you want the cylinder to let light through it, you need to do this by using the cast shadows property of the cylinder. If I turn this off, then lighting will travel freely through the cylinder, but I'm not able to control that using the transparency setting of the material. Moving back to the material properties, the next one is called Tint. Tint controls the way color travels through a transparent object. If the object is made of materials like glass, plastic, or a liquid, then generally tint should be set to 100% because it colors anything you see through it. If we change this material to be red, or let's go for green, then you will see nothing but green shades traveling through the object. Now if I change the tint to 0%, which is what we would use for materials transparent because you can actually see through them, such as weaves or gauzes, then the green color only occurs by direct reflection on the surface. So you can see there is a clear difference between full tint and no tint. The last setting, the frost setting, affects how fuzzy objects appear that you see through the object. So if I set this to 0%, you can very clearly see the edges of the cylinder behind, whereas at 100%, everything behind the cylinder has a fuzzy edge, and it's difficult to pick up any small details. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at textures, as well as the luminance property that I mentioned. Hang around, see you soon.